have a deep love for chapters like this. They feel very special. The reason they feel special is because they drive home a very specific concept. From start to finish, they are playing through something. What is that through, you may ask? Perception. This whole chapter, every character, every idea is based entirely through perception. Its importance, its power, its negligence, and everything in between. Perception on one side can be isolated to an individual. However, as soon as you start to share perception, you start to collectively bridge it outwards, make it bigger and grander for other people to understand. Two characters in this situation that share the same perspective is Iori, Samura's daughter, as well as Chihiro. However, the Masumi ninjas also share a different perspective, and their perception on the situation both externally, looking at Chihiro and Iori, but also internally, figuring out what they should and shouldn't do. They are following orders, but they are not monsters. So when this idea is brought to Iori, whether she wants to remember or have it all erased, you're playing into a bigger, broader perspective that everyone can collectively understand from their own personal experience, but for also what they believe to be is correct. This is not the only moment. Perspective being the key word for this entire chapter, you open up with that idea in mind. A fight between Koguri and Chihiro based purely on the perception of swordsmanship, with the recent understanding surrounding Chihiro not actually being a swordsman, but more so someone that has learned very little in a short amount of time, going up against people that have styles, that have learned, that have poured many years into mastering a specific type of swordsmanship is night and day. Chihiro in that instance is far behind, both practical and theory. Where he shines, however, is that he is adaptable, being able to perceive things much better than most people, and this chapter makes it very clear how that perception physically truly works. What should be made clear is that Chihiro is by no means an amateur swordsman. He's only an amateur when it comes to a style. He can wield a sword. He can fight with a sword. Even if he is reliant on his abilities, he still has a very clear and self-acknowledged understanding on how his sword style should work, what's best for the situation, but also how to navigate and move the spiritual energy in terms of his power in regards to Enten. So the amateur word is only really fitting to a style. He has not traditionally learned how to wield a sword within a specific category. However, he has learned to fight and he's learned to survive. And at the end of the day, that is truly what matters in the heat of battle. Not how respectful you can be to a swordsmanship or a style, but who survives at the end. Now don't get me wrong, there can be respect between the trading of blows, which is what you're seeing with the opener with Koguri versus Chihiro. Koguri feels oddly disrespected that Chihiro did not open up with the Ayato style, Samura's and Uraha's. We know the reason for that, but Koguri is left in the dark. So Koguri's perspective is an interesting one because he values swordsmanship. He values the art and the craft of dedicating yourself to a style of swordplay. That's what he wants, that's what he cherishes above all else. So when someone comes in mimicking the Ayato style, which on one hand is impressive but also disrespectful because he doesn't know it and never used it at the beginning, you're caught at an impasse. This does serve as an incredible vessel to understanding how Chihiro functions as a swordsman, which is heavily reliant on his eyesight. A massive reveal in regards to his father. You see, Chihiro's father was a blacksmith, and the way that he created these enchanted blades was by seeing the minute details, the fluctuations in the stone to make it compatible, to make it stable. So there's no ability that Chihiro's father had, but instead a skill that he had learned and honed over many years. These mean two massive things for the story. One, someone as good as a blacksmith as Chihiro's father could replicate the swords again. If they can visually see the fluctuations in the stone and be able to stabilize it, theoretically, they could create new enchanted blades or weaponry. But two, genetics. Chihiro has inherited that exact same eyesight. However, it's not a cheat code. I think naturally people are going to assume that Chihiro just magically has these powerful eyes that can perceive absolutely everything. That's not exactly true. We know that Chihiro from a young age was a blacksmith, that he trained with his father, and through the teachings of his father, he would naturally develop the same type of eye, which is quality, being able to see and perceive the fluctuations in that very same stone. And this is not something that you get off the rip. This is something that has to be learned and taught through vigorous hard work and experimentation, which is that of a blacksmith. Chihiro's eyesight now is being applied to his swordsmanship, how he views other people, how he views Enten, how he views himself. It's very clear. Because of this, his options within fight is relatively limited, not power or thought process, but outcomes. Going back to what I said before, Chihiro's outcome in the fight is to win, to survive, to kill the other person. On the other hand, Koguri's outcome for a fight is to revel in the swordplay, to respect and admire the clashing of swords. As you can see, perspective is a very powerful tool here. How it traverses through Chihiro, then onto Iori, is almost like a mirror. They are in a really good situation right now. A hotel, which is a neutral zone, which you would consider Switzerland, something straight out of John Wick. For now, nothing can happen in here, and they have a lot of options. On one hand, they are recreating the seal, but this time for good, most likely fully erasing Iori's memories, so she will never get any sort of leakage of Samura ever again, and her life potentially can return back to normal. On the other side of that option, you give her agency. You let her decide what she wants to do. And because we are in Switzerland, we have the opportunity to tell her everything. Tell her the story of Samura. Tell her everything that the Misumi ninjas do and what Chihiro is capable of. By giving her a choice, you give her agency. This is something the Misumi ninjas were not going to do. Instead, it comes from Chihiro. And that is a very powerful perspective to have. And why these two people, Iori and Chihiro, mirror each other almost perfectly. You might notice Iori is weird towards Chihiro, claiming him to be some sort of killer, which she clarifies that it might be a misunderstanding, but Chihiro never corrects her. Deep down, he is a killer, but for different circumstances, the exact same way as her father. So when she is given the opportunity to learn about her father, it's going to be a very interesting battle of perspectives. She might even draw up some sort of comparison between Chihiro and Samura. There is a general rule of morality here, what should and shouldn't be done within different circumstances. We do not know the entirety of Samura's. I believe there's more to his thought process, but he has explained and expressed it very clearly, the whole plan that he has in motion. While it comes at the cost of death and brutality, it does clear a path of a brighter future, the storm before the sunset, so to speak. Depending on one's perspective, you could view that as being kind of a benevolent thing, that he's willing to sacrifice himself to do this. But the path that he is taking, again, brutal and very much isolated from the world, taking on all of this pain and suffering himself, putting it outwards onto others and cutting down people without mercy and providing no opportunity. When there is different ways that this could go, Samura just doesn't want to take them, or the risk that it could invoke. That beautiful mirror between Chihiro and Iori comes in the form of understanding their fathers and not wanting to trade that time for anything. I imagine Chihiro sees it as horrifying to lose those memories of someone so special, the time before all of the destruction and the despair and the killing. It puts him on a relatable level with Iori. He can personally, from his experience and his perspective, understand her pain right now, which is why he is the vessel to give her that choice. It's a powerful one, and I think it is indicative to the type of character that Chihiro is, what he's becoming, but also how people view him. Iori is one of many whose minds will start to change about Chihiro. He's a very compassionate individual, blunt to the point, but compassionate. This is all culminating around a 24-hour period, and within that time, Chihiro wants to master the art of the sword, the Aido style, and that is being directed towards Iori and her safety. If Iori does not want her memories erased and wants to hold on to the idea of Samura, potentially chase him down, it is up to Misumi and Chihiro to protect her from here on out, not only from the Hishaku, but also from the Kabanabi. Two different factions wanting her for two different reasons, wanting to weaponize and utilize, potentially even sacrifice her for her father, continuing to take away her agency and shackling her to being a product of a tool. The importance, the power is Chihiro setting her free, allowing her to decide what she wants to do, and having the ability, the confidence to keep her safe. That Ayato style, I think, will be the very first of many sword styles that Chihiro might learn over time. If all of these enchanted blade wielders are master swordsmen that have their own differing styles, it would benefit Chihiro exponentially to learn them as best as possible. So within fight, the Dance of Swords, he can use any style that he wants. And while he may never get to the masterful level of utilization between his abilities and his sword style compared to someone like Samura or Uraha, he can provide something different. The utilization of the Ayato style with the type of abilities of Enten could be manifested in a different sword style that is an evolved version of Ayato. Think about it like this: the identity of one's swordsmanship comes down to their own inner conscious, their own reflection, their own perception of themselves. On a less symbolic and more technical front, how they merge the swordsmanship with their ability to create their own version of that Ayato style. So Uraha's with his enchanted blade and Samura's with his enchanted blades will be the same but different, the same way that Chihiro will be the same but different. It is masterful to even get close, and he's utilizing every aspect of his being to be able to do it respectfully. He's not trying to cannibalize the Ayato style. He's trying to learn it to its core using the ability of a blacksmith that he has trained for his entire life, something that his father is known for. The utmost minute details of one's perception.